Good afternoon, everyone. It's another Thursday, and welcome to Likkle Byte Ideas with Samuel Fields Consulting Group. I am Doreed Whitlock, and it's my pleasure to welcome so many of you to our show today. We're still in March celebrating Women's History Month, and I really hope that for most of you, you've begun to really shift your money mindset, look at how you can perhaps do things a little more responsibly as it relates to our money. And so we'll be talking about money, business, finance, as we always do on Lick a Bit Ideas. But let me first introduce my guests. Of course, I'm Doreed. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer. Let me welcome our CEO, Megan Samuel Fields, to our virtual stage.
Good afternoon, Doreed, and good afternoon to our many guests. So glad that you're here.
Great. And of course, share the live, call your friends. It's time to talk money. It's time to shift our money mindset. And continuing with our celebration of women, successful women, trailblazers, firsts in their field. We have a special guest today, but let me just remind you that this is our third Thursday. On our first Thursday, we had Keisha Shahoff. She is headed to space. So exciting. She's going to be the first Caribbean quote unquote astronaut headed to space sometime soon. We had a great discussion with her and how she's going to use that as a platform for financial wellness and empowerment. Last week, we had Miss Yoletta Francis. She is the Chief Executive Officer of the Antigua and Barbuda Airport Authority. So first we had our space woman. Last week we had the gatekeeper. She is in charge of the airport. So we kind of call her the gatekeeper. You know how many gates they have at airports. And of course, she literally holds the key to Antigua and Barbuda, or the main key to Antigua and Barbuda, being in charge of our airport. And this week, we are delighted to welcome Antigua and Barbuda's first and only optometrist, Dr. First female optometrist, Dr. Julia Bird. Everyone knows Dr. Bird. She's known for her advocacy and her passion for glaucoma awareness. Dr. Bird, we are so delighted. She's a family friend. And so we're so delighted to welcome you to our stage. We're going to talk vision care, of course. Dr. Bird is an entrepreneur. And, you know, for a lot of us women, we were chatting earlier, the challenge of running a business and then having to worry about the financial aspects of it and, you know, keeping the lights on, your doors open, and all the other things that we women try to balance can be a challenge, which is why we love having these conversations, because we can always learn from each other. And it's a continuous process. You know, I've been really paying attention to a lot of articles, particularly because we're celebrating women this month. Much has been said about the mindset of women as it relates to money, financial literacy. And of course, you know, we're wired a little differently. Our role in society is a little different. So it's not surprising that our viewpoints and our values as far as money might be a little different from the male perspective. But it's something that we're going to continuously work on. And if we can do our small part throughout the month of March to bring more attention to financial wellness, financial empowerment, your money mindset, let's all do it. So before we get into our discussion about vision care and optometry and understanding what it means to be an optometrist versus an ophthalmologist, I'm not even sure I can pronounce these words so well, because usually most people stumble on them. But before we get into that, I'm going to have our CEO share some information about the mindset of women, just some interesting statistics that we found so that you recognize that it is a challenge that a lot of women face. And if you find yourself here, just remember you're not alone. So, Megan, I'm going to turn it over to you for you to walk us through those statistics, and then we'll come back and talk about vision care, business, and glaucoma awareness. It is also, we just recently celebrated Glaucoma Awareness Week last week. So
That's
it's
right.
still very fresh, but it's
Mhm.
something that's afflicting our society and something we have to be focused on every single day. So let's first start with the money, and then we'll come back and talk about vision care.
Okay, so as you know, we generally speak about financial wellness and financial empowerment on our Little Byte ideas. And the topic of women and financial wellness and financial empowerment is one of my passions. And so when we came upon this particular slide, I thought, wow, this is something that's worth sharing and having a little discussion on. So my technician, if you can bring the slide up. So this is just speaking about a woman's money mindset and some very interesting stats. So 92% of women are eager to learn about financial planning. I'm sure you all can agree because we always have to be making ends meet, planning for the future, making sure that we have the school fees put away for when next term comes and things like that. But only 47% are confident talking about money and investments with a professional. So here it is. You have a large amount of women who want to know about financial planning, nearly 100%, 92%, but less than 50% are confident talking about money and investments. And this particular statistic for me says a lot because it speaks to our confidence as women and our confidence about money. We might be confident in other areas, but somehow being confident to speak about money, there is a gap. And that's something we have to try to improve because it's one thing to want to learn, but if you don't want to talk about it, then there will be no movement. And I believe that a lot of it comes maybe from stigma and from how you were raised. Perhaps the man in the house dealt with the money. And so you figured you shouldn't really be speaking about money. But whatever it is, we need to change our money mindset and become more confident. Because once you have that power, empower her. Once you have that power to speak about money and understand what money can do for you, it's a tool. But once you can understand that and be confident about learning and about taking matters into your hands, then we can make a bigger difference in this world. 8 out of 10 women have confessed that they refrain from having financial conversations. Can you imagine that? That's a conversation we need to have. We need to speak about our finances because it's so important. We can't do many things unless there is finance. And so, and it encompasses all parts of our lives, financial wellness. We're big on the financial wheel. It affects all the different aspects, whether it's spiritual, emotional, environmental, social, physical, emotional. But yet still, even though it touches all these parts of our lives, 8 out of 10 women don't have the conversations. 60% worry about having enough money to last through retirement. That's a big percentage, but I can understand why. You're worrying because you're not talking about it. You're not confident enough to talk about it. So we really, really have to see how we can make some changes so that we don't end up being, or that we can reduce these percentages so that we don't have 60% worrying about money, so that we have more than or less than 8 out of 10, much less, refraining from having financial conversations. So we as women, this is our month, Women History Month, and we just celebrated International Women's Day. I want to encourage all the women to take a step, take a step towards becoming more empowered, where with money and your money mindset, be more confident. There is no, there's nothing preventing you from having the conversation. We at Samuel Fields are open, but there's so many others that you can speak to. But we need to start the conversations going so that we can change these percentages. So for today, that is my little tidbit to all the women out there. Let us see how we can become more confident, how we can have more conversations about financial wellness, about financial matters, financial literacy. And so that when we are heading into retirement, we're not that worried because we would have made the necessary plans and put them in place. Okay, that's it for me with the finances for right now. And we can speak to our visionary.
There you go. Well, thank you for enlightening us. You laid the way for our visionary, and it's definitely something I encourage all women to pay attention to. Of course, it starts with financial literacy. You have to have the education, and I think as it's often said, financial literacy leads to financial empowerment.
Absolutely.
Knowing is is
Half the
doing. You
battle.
first have to have the knowledge.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so let us get to our guests. Our guest, I should say, Dr. Julia Bird. Dr. Bird, welcome once again.
Thank you for having me. And I wish that Samuel Fields was there to guide me in the early days when I first established practice. Because when I first decided to embark on a project of building an office building, I sat in a boardroom with a semicircle of male bankers by myself with absolutely zero financial literacy. And I don't want to say smirks on faces, but I think you know what I mean when, I was presenting my really naive ideas of, what I needed to get done so that I could save sight. I had worked for a while as a tenant and decided that, I needed to be braver and bolder. And the ideas that I had just could not fly in a male dominated banking world. Ideas like preserving old buildings and not pulling down a historical building, finding a way to preserve it and build around it and still make back what you need from me every month. I was literally laughed out of the
Oh
boardroom.
dear. Wow.
And we really, I'm in that 53% or 50% almost that just shakes to even start to have this kind of conversation. And I'm proud of myself that I did. But if I knew what I know now about borrowing and interest, I really feel that as not just eye doctors but medical practitioners, most other professions, we really need a grounding in this, in financial literacy, before we step out to start saving lives and saving, and saving sight,
Yeah.
because retirement faces us all. I will have to stop saving sight at some point, and where will I be?
And I
So
think that's probably part of I'm going to say a deficiency
it
in
is.
our education,
Mm-hmm.
because so you're speaking about the medical field,
Yeah,
but I'm an attorney as well, and I
yeah,
can say that affects the attorneys as well.
Yeah.
The focus is on you are going to be, we're going to teach you to be the best lawyer there is. And yes, there is an area, a section where they speak about office management, but it is so
Yeah.
tiny that you basically wing it when you go out into the world. And I think it's time. I don't know how that would change, but I really think it's time that it becomes a more important aspect of
Yes.
all the different disciplines that's
Definitely.
offered at the university, that you have not just a token um, course. So you can
Yeah.
say, well, you did a course in office management or
Right.
in accounting, but
Yeah.
really how to run your business, how
That's
to
right.
be more financially literate. Because let's face it, doctors and lawyers in particular, they most likely are going to start their own business.
Yeah.
If you look at the number of small businesses,
Hmm.
it's going to be mainly doctors and lawyers, but
Hmm.
they don't really get a lot of
Hmm.
education, formal
Right.
education in office management, in accounting, finance, financial literacy.
Yeah.
So they wing it.
It's urgent. It's an
Yeah.
urgent need.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Megan. I think it starts with our educational system. I think we've just been handed down. It's culturally,
Yeah.
business is something that typically is constrained to certain families. You find that if a family starts a business, more than likely there may be a generational
Yeah.
um, interest in business. In certain groups of society, that's their thing. They're
Yeah.
about business. And so it still has not been a mainstream
Hmm.
ideal for a lot of us to even want to start our own businesses. I think COVID
Yeah.
and this young generation, they're the ones who are going to change that
Yeah.
whole paradigm,
Oh
because
yes.
Yes.
younger people are very keen on working for themselves, even if they choose a career. It's very important for a lot of them to have at least a side hustle, a business,
Mhm.
another stream of income. So I
Hmm.
think it is
Which is
changing,
key. It is.
from
It
a
is.
cultural standpoint, but I think a lot needs to happen um, within our educational system so that they're better prepared to really sift through these issues and navigate their
Right.
options
Hmm.
as to, do I
Hmm.
want to go the career path and perhaps do a business on the side, or do I want to leave school and go directly into starting my own business?
Yeah.
The game of life.
Urgent.
Yep. So, Dr. Bird, tell us, for many of us, including me, people, you go to your eye doctor and things have changed. You have the eye doctor. I know in the United States you can go to the lens crafters, and I've taken friends to the eye shop. People come from Antigua to visit, and you take them to go get their new glasses. And I quite like picking out glasses. And so, so first of all, the whole concept of eyewear has been glamorized. Girls in glasses don't get passes is a thing of the past. It is quite a fashion statement these days. And so two things. The entire industry of eyewear and the vision market has been transformed. And then for a lot of us, we don't even understand how that industry works. So, we would really appreciate if you could start by explaining to us the difference between an optometrist and an ophthalmologist.
Okay, well, it's not even just the two O's. There's a collection of O's that we confuse the
Oh,
public
wow.
with. And the industry, it's an understatement really to say the industry has changed, because you can examine your eyes online right now while we are on this webinar, on this Zoom program. on a side screen. You can have an eye exam
Oh,
while,
wow.
while you wait and pick out your glasses.
I saw
And
that and I thought, is
Yes.
that for
I've
real?
seen that. Warby, I think it's Warby, the company. I've seen
yes, Warby
Warby's
Parker,
ads.
Yes,
yes, and
Robbie
there are
Parker.
many others. And
Yes.
of course, you talked about the young people, and they're right on it, and they know exactly what to do. But for me, and for the silent disorders like glaucoma, it's a disaster. So let me answer your question and then try and explain why
Okay.
it's a disaster. An optometrist is not a medical doctor like an ophthalmologist is. And I could have been an ophthalmologist because I had a place in UWI's medical school way back in 1979.
Oh, wow.
But we had a little bit of sibling rivalry in my household that only the Reed would appreciate. I don't think Noah and Aaron would have a similar rivalry because the Reed, you have twins. And my
Yes.
sister and I got accepted to UWI Medical School at the same time in
Oh,
1970
wow. How wonderful.
after doing the first year of what's called the Natural Sciences degree. But just Murphy's Law, just as my luck would have it, that exact year they changed the requirements for medical school from either physics or chemistry to only physics. Sorry,
Mm.
physics, sorry, math. It was either math or physics. You could do either one of the natural sciences courses and use that for admission. Just so happens, just as I was offered a place, I was told, but there's a big but. You're going to have to stay back behind your sister and finish a year of physics. I hated physics. I don't know why I'm an optometrist because I hated physics. And I had to do more physics than I would have done even for the medical degree to do optometry. But so there you have it. And of course, you would know with Genesis and Gabby, there is, well, I don't know. Your twins were always very different. So I don't know if it would have bothered either one, but it certainly made me turn down a medical place, a place in UWI's medical school. So
Oh,
I may
wow.
have been an ophthalmologist if I could have sat on my ego, but I could not swallow that one. I could not
That is
swallow
so interesting.
graduating. Yeah, I couldn't swallow graduating as a doctor a year behind my twin sister. That just couldn't fly. And so I said, I hate
What a
medicine.
big problem to
I hate
have.
medicine. And I went into biochemistry and food chemistry and became
Oh,
a
really?
sugar chemist. Yes.
What
But
kind of
Oh,
doctor is your sister?
she's a pediatrician. Yes. She
Okay.
works in, yeah. And
and they still look like.
we still look alike. It's a big problem, people meet me at the hospital on the street and think that I'm the pediatrician, or they think that she's the optometrist. We could wreak a lot of havoc in the Caribbean. Yeah, so an ophthalmologist has medical training and maybe only a couple of hours in eyes, in the general medical degree, and then they have to go on to do a specialty in eyes.
Hmm.
An optometrist studies eyes from the beginning of our training, and we qualify with a professional doctor of optometry degree. It's a professional degree comparable to what a dentist does, what a podiatrist does, but
Hmm.
it's not a medical doctor.
I
Our
see.
training has changed so much over the years that you have doctors, optometrists in other countries who are doing laser procedures and minor surgical procedures. So the turf that some doctors would prefer to keep separate has not stayed separate, um,
Right.
much to the angst of some people. So the other O's, so that's an optometrist who traditionally was thought to be just a lens fitter, spectacle fitter, or contact lens fitter. But we have morphed into, I call us the gatekeepers. You come to me first, and I will tell you where you need to be. So you need to
Oh,
see an ophthalmologist. Let me make the appointment for you. You need to see a neurologist. Let me help you do the link for that. So we consider ourselves the gatekeepers, rather like a primary care physician. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to go
Very
to a
interesting.
cardiologist because you have a chest pain. You go to your GP to figure out whether your chest pain is acid reflux or heart disease.
Yes.
And the GP will guide you in the direction. Well, we're the GPs of eye care, but working
Mm.
alongside us are the opticians who actually do the fitting of spectacles and the bench work. It's called bench work, which is to actually fabricate your glasses. And I actually did a
Mm.
course in opticianry. I have a degree in opticianry before I qualified as an optometrist because I knew that I would be selling myself short if I didn't understand how to make glasses before I
Ah.
became an optometrist. So I'm trained in both areas. I'm sorry I didn't think financial literacy was as important because it is, but I know differently now.
Yes.
And then, of course,
That's
you have
interesting.
I consider an occupational therapist a part of our whole team because I actually practice, I'm training myself in occupational therapy, another
Mm.
O, because I have so many children struggling in school with eye skills and motor skills that have nothing to do with 2020 vision that I
Mm-hmm.
realized occupational therapy was sadly missing from this team approach, this team management that I would
Mm-hmm.
prefer we saw. So there are a lot of O's. I
Mm.
apologize on behalf of my colleagues to the public for confusing you and for our infighting that between professions that serves to fuel that sort of confusion. So
Mm.
a silent disorder like glaucoma suffers from the explosion of the glamorization of eye care because you
Mhm.
can walk into a place and have an eye test and buy 10 pairs of glasses without being tested, and you cannot take the police back to that establishment to arrest them when you find out that you weren't tested because they didn't pretend to be optometrists testing you for glaucoma.
Very,
So
very
the
interesting.
regular, so doctor, but the regular eye tests that we come in to do, and we look at the chart,
Yes,
and I can't go beyond maybe three or four.
that's
That
right.
even if you can read all the way down to the tiny, tiny one, that has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not you have glaucoma. Is that's what I'm hearing?
Absolutely nothing.
You know what, Dr.
Absolutely.
Bird? Why don't you explain for us what glaucoma actually is?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like your viewers to take away one thing if they don't hear anything else. It's that glaucoma is not one thing.
Hmm.
Glaucoma is a basket of conditions labeled the same, but with different cause, all leading to damage to the one nerve we have at the back of each eye, but by different mechanisms.
Hmm.
And herein lies some of the confusion. And people like to say after 5 minutes in my chair, so I don't have it, right? And you have to try to explain to them that I don't know yet. Even after spending an hour with you, I still don't know if you have glaucoma. We have to do A, B, C, and D. But what about my glasses? Is usually the rejoinder. Because, people base a lot on that 2020 chart. And, I can understand that. Because to read 2020, you're seeing clearly, okay, let's go back to work, back to family, back to party. I can see now. Nothing do my eye is what the young men tell me when I try to insist that they get an eye test. For what? Nothing do my eye. I see 2020 vision. But unfortunately, the type of that basket, in that basket of glaucomas that Caribbean people suffer from mostly is called open angle glaucoma, based on the shape of a part of the eye called the angle that drains fluid. It's either narrow or wide. Most of us have wide angle glaucoma or open angle glaucoma. And that's what I mean by silent. There is no pain associated with it. No tearing, no running of eyes, no blurring of vision in the early stages. So unless you have a comprehensive eye exam specifically looking for it, you will not know you have glaucoma. And herein lies the disaster
Yeah.
that is open angle glaucoma.
Hmm.
Um,
Wow, wow, wow,
that's
wow.
why I'm wearing my shirt today. I'm not nicely dressed up in an office attire, button down, because we have to make noise about
Yes.
this condition. Um, it's the
So
only way.
tell us about your shirt.
Well, this is one of our shirts from a few years ago. I hope my rain shower is not, we love rain, but I hope it's not going to drown me out now. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes, we're
Yes.
hearing you.
Yes, we have a huge rain shower here that I'm going to try to get my daughter to close windows on this side for me. She's scowling at me. So, yeah, so we make a lot of noise about glaucoma. We meaning not just Antigua and the Caribbean, but we have to make the loudest noise because we lead the world in the prevalence numbers for open angle glaucoma. And people just can't seem to get that message. Why? I don't have an answer for you. But I just got the stats out of West Africa, Ghana in particular, and their numbers mirror very, very closely our numbers. That about 7% of our general population has glaucoma. Unfortunately, 50% of those people, it is estimated, still don't know they're suffering from the
Oh,
disorder. And those numbers go up exponentially with age. And both
mm,
of you know that our populations are aging. So that means as these years tick by, we're going to have more and more glaucoma.
yeah.
Ghana sent me the figures, about 8.3 in their general population. So it's even higher. And most of our descendants came from the west of
Right.
Africa.
I was
Yes,
just going to
yes,
say that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's a genetic link of some kind. I know it doesn't, science hasn't shown that it has to do with being black yet. The pigment, meaning pigment in the skin and in the eye. But it's something to do with our genetic makeup that causes us to have higher numbers. Now, what does that mean? It means that we're going to have more people losing sight if we don't change a culture. Just like how we don't have a culture of financial literacy,
Hmm.
we need a culture of well exams.
Hmm.
Well exams meaning you have to check your eyes even if you don't have a headache or blurred vision.
Right.
And so I'm in the schools. I check 5-year-olds. I checked your 8-year-olds. I think your Genesis and Gabby may have been about 6 when you sent them
Yes.
to me, or
Yes.
7 or something like that. And Megan's boys know that, they're grown when they're coming home for holiday because Dr. Bird is waiting on you. You know?
Absolutely.
So unless we
Wow.
can change the culture and the understanding and the awareness, we're not going to change the problem. And
Hmm.
I know awareness works. I did a television show last week for house calls. Oh
Mhm.
my goodness. I listen, the 2 days following that house
Oh,
call,
yes.
I saw more blindness in my office than I
Wow.
saw for months before.
Wow.
And that's, you reach people. Unfortunately, they were all male. And very sadly for me, they were all past patients of mine.
Oh dear.
So I know, and I hate to fail. And I know you girls are high achievers. You hate to fail also. I know you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially for things that can be managed.
Oh my goodness. One had been
Mm.
seen 22 years ago,
Oh,
Oh,
my
and
God.
his eye pressures were normal. One had been seen 18 years ago, and his eye pressures were normal because you can't buy a pair of glasses from Dr. Bird without having your eye pressure tested. I'm sorry.
mhm,
You can
mhm.
leave if you don't agree with that philosophy. And, people call my staff and said, she too disgusting. She there? So you leave,
Yes.
and they don't realize my staff reports verbatim back to me. I
Exactly.
hear my staff saying, "Oh, you want to come when the doctor not there? That's interesting." But I'm
That's
sorry.
that's
Wow.
hilarious,
I'm
actually.
sorry.
Yeah.
I've
But
seen. too much to do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Something that
Wow.
crossed my mind, which I want to segue to, I wonder, you know, you may not even have a basis for comparison, but to what extent do you think gender affects your role as being an optometrist?
Um, Huge.
Really?
Both positive and negative. I have to
Hmm.
come at it from both sides. Uh, a lot of people come because I'm female. They think your hands are smaller, softer, and gentler. So, and that's not just to do with
And you have
eyes.
a great personality.
Well, and I think that's another thing that we need to check with medical students entering school. We need to really do psychological assessments. And you say you go that way, you're not
You
going
and
to
I
be
were
a good
talking about
doctor.
psychological assessments in another
Exactly.
area as
Yep.
well. You
Yep.
have
I
to,
think
It's
it's
important.
really,
what you're dealing with. You
It's
may not be able to
important.
change it, but
it's
you
really
have to know
important.
what you're up against.
You have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
So a lot of people come because I'm a woman. They think I won't hurt them as much as a man. Because a
Hmm,
lot of people are really afraid of pain with eyes. Well, they're afraid
that's
of pain in
interesting.
general, especially the men, eh? I have to tell you, I'm not shouting down the men, but it's really something to see. And that you have to relax the guys and reassure them before you even begin what you're doing. And
Wow.
so that's from the positive side. From the
Hmm.
negative side, I have had people look past me. I don't know if it's about the female or the fact that in the past doctors were both male and non-African origin in the way back.
Right.
So I have had people look past me and asked if the doctor is in.
Ooh, ooh, ooh,
I usually
ooh.
Wow.
chuckle. Oh, many times. I usually chuckle and say, "What? I'm too short, or what?" so, from both aspects.
Hmm. That's
So
very
that's on the
Wow.
interesting.
negative side.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Being a female optometrist, you're often perceived as not knowing as much as the
Mm.
male doctor, not being as
Wow.
competent
They
as the male.
probably didn't know.
I face that.
Anyone who has that mindset probably did not know the Bird sisters on top of the form back in the 70s.
Yes.
Because
For
if they
45
knew,
years. Can I tell people how many years ago that was? 50 years ago. Can you
50?
imagine? I just thank God for life that I'm still
50,
alive
what
50
was 50
years.
years ago?
Yeah, top of the form would have been when I
Five
was,
zero?
yes,
You guys were on top of the form in 1972?
yes, probably. Because
Oh,
I left,
Lord.
yes, I left school in the 1970s.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
But
I
you know
left.
what I would say?
Wow.
You know what I would
Sorry?
say, Dr. Bird? Jude was saying anybody who says that wouldn't know about the Bird sisters. I would go further and say that they don't know the lady in that picture behind of you.
There you
Oh,
go.
well.
We're working our way back to
And,
that.
Working our way back there.
she sits there daily, but I purposely moved my computer around so that you could see
You
her
can
because
see
this
her,
is
of
my
course.
inspiration right here. A
Oh,
lot of people don't know
oh,
my story because it is still pertaining to her because it's still so hard for me to tell. And when
oh,
I'm on a Zoom or a television program, I can't afford to break down. And so
I
I
hear you.
don't give her full story. But she was the founder of Antigua's first and only
Oh,
glaucoma support
wow.
group.
Mm-hmm,
She was my
mm-hmm.
PRO until the day she died.
Oh,
And she
Oh,
wow.
that's
died
amazing.
blind. A lot of people
Oh,
don't
wow.
know that my mother died blind from glaucoma.
Oh,
Glaucoma is, after 30 years, glaucoma still brings me to my knees
mm,
because it is a progressive, relentless disorder. There's no turning back once you've passed the point of no return. And a lot of people want to always ask me, what is that point of no return? As doctors and scientists, we still haven't figured it out. My mother had 5 college degrees. My mother is the smartest
wow.
person I know personally in the
Maybe
world.
most of us now.
Wow.
And yet still, she had no idea until I came back to Antigua in 1991 that she had glaucoma. And it took me 6 years to convince other specialists that she actually had glaucoma
Oh, really?
because it's such a mystery disorder.
Oh,
You
okay.
can be misdiagnosed because glaucoma is complicated. And I'm not talking about quack doctors, I'm talking about specialists in their own right, looking at numbers in front of them and not being sure what is this we're looking at. They thought she probably had a brain tumor because her optic nerves looked so debilitated, just like glaucoma, but she didn't have an elevated eye pressure. And that's the message I would like to leave with your audience, that the definition of glaucoma has changed over the years. When I left school, glaucoma was a disease of raised intraocular pressure in the eyeball, causing damage to the optic nerve. The words eye and pressure have been taken out of the definition of glaucoma.
Oh
Glaucoma
wow.
is now called a group of diseases that damage the optic nerve progressively, leading to blindness without intervention.
Wow.
So it doesn't even matter what your eye pressure is. So I told doctors in 6 different countries, if my mother doesn't have glaucoma, you better tell me what she has. And I just kept moving. Barbados, New York. And the last person that called me in New York was a top specialist that said, you know, Julia, I think you might be right. But we have to do some other scans and see what's going on here. I see this after since then. I gave her 20 years of sight. Let me say this on your media,
Wow.
but it's not enough for me. It has left me dissatisfied and sad. And it has left me wanting to change it. And that's why
I can
I do what
certainly
I do.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I tell Megan, I'm sorry, Megan, if you have a meeting, come back because you have to do the field test. I
Yep.
am not selling you the next pair of fashion frames without a visual field peripheral vision test. Sorry.
Yep.
And so I think I can change it, but it's still going to take work. We've come a long way, you know. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. We've come a long way.
But there's
And
still a long
programs
way to
like
go.
this, you're in my debt, you know, and programs like this, they do help. They do help. So spread the word for me. Ask your girlfriends, when last you checked the pressure in your eyes since you bought that fashion frame?
Right, right, right.
Yeah,
Because I
it's
was going
really
to ask, what can we do? What can the general public do? And I guess it's to spread the word.
spread the word.
And tell
Spread the
people to get
word and get
tested.
used to. I mean, I'm at fault also. I haven't had my physical for last year. Everybody, you know, and that's the other thing about COVID and the COVID pandemic. It kept a lot of people out of routine care
Yes.
Yes.
who
Oh,
would
yes,
In
absolutely.
so
ordinarily.
many areas.
There were delayed appointments, cancelled appointments. I mean, I think we did very well here in Antigua. I have friends in the UK who are months out from getting an appointment to do anything health related because of COVID. But we have to get you, I think we should tie it to school entry. I'll tell you the honest truth. Even though glaucoma is less common in the younger age groups, I have found babies with glaucoma, 5 years old, 5 year olds with glaucoma, 10-year-olds. But even if we don't find it by insisting on an eye test for school entry, it will be a slight shift in the mindset. You talk about changing your mindset. If we can change the mindset that you must get a test before your vision is blurred because we're Black and West African, to look for this disease. I think we can change it that way. And with the men, we have to tie it to their jobs and their driver's licenses.
Gotcha.
So
So
the big
as
companies I'm not going to name and shame anybody, but I don't want
Mhm.
you don't know the number of men who are driving heavy duty equipment and trucks on construction sites with cranes, that it's workmates that realize that that guy going up on that ladder isn't seeing well.
Oh my goodness, that's very scary.
It's extremely scary. And by the
Mhm.
time that individual is brought in, I just have to ring. The amount of times per day I say, oh man, when I really want to give an expletive, it's just horrible. And it's preventable. Most
Okay.
blindness is 80% of all blindness is preventable.
Mhm.
Wow. So
Mhm.
you're saying that glaucoma, are you saying that it's preventable or the
The
blindness that,
disease, sorry to cut you, but the disease itself may not be preventable, but the result of late diagnosis is
yes.
preventable. The
Okay.
blindness is
Yes.
prevent. Nobody
Yes.
needs to go blind from glaucoma. Medical benefits gives free medication.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not free.
Wow.
You've paid your deductions over the years, your working
Hmm.
life, but you don't pass any money over the counter when you collect
When you
the
collect.
treatment for glaucoma.
Yeah.
The eye exams are subsidized, the surgical procedures are subsidized for glaucoma by medical benefits. Nobody in Antigua needs to be blind, ladies,
Yep, public education all the way.
all the
And I'm
way.
just, and as you were speaking, Dr. Bird, I thought, there is a link between your eyesight and your financial wellness.
The huge link,
Yeah. So
huge link.
it's so important for,
Yeah,
I'm thinking now, even for employers to
yes,
perhaps try and see how they can play a
right,
part by ensuring that
yes.
their employees get tested,
That's right.
because it
Especially
can make
those
a
that
difference.
employ large bands of men, since
Yes.
men are
Yes.
more reluctant to do the routine testing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a great point, because
Yeah.
if you go blind late in life, it's almost like your life is over. If you're born blind, you can be Antigua's representative to the United Nations.
Exactly. Exactly.
You can be anything you want to be. But if you go blind late in life, like your 50s, a 50-year-old man losing his sight is a burden to society.
Hmm.
He
Yeah.
really is.
Because he wouldn't know how to cope.
You don't know how to cope. The skills that we can help you with for mobility and life skills, you're so depressed
Oh
you don't even
dear.
want to learn anything like that. You
Mm-hmm.
want your sight back. All they
Yes.
want is their sight back.
Yes.
The
Yes.
glaucoma damage is irreversible. Your sight will not come back,
Mm.
not
Mm-hmm.
even with the best doctor, the best medicine, and the best surgical interventions. Once it's gone, it's irreversible.
Wow. Wow. So
And that's
early detection is
early
absolutely
detection.
key.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think your point about the workplace, especially large construction
Yes.
companies and heavy duty equipment and
Yes.
APUA, you
Mm-hmm.
cannot get a job here without a certificate, a vision clearance, and periodically after.
Mm-hmm. And for the glaucoma test itself, when they come in, I know you say it's a battery of things you would have to check
Yes.
for. Where my mind went is, I know from time to time, let's say medical benefits would have their, oh, I can't remember the actual name, but
Yes.
the
A
health fair,
screening.
I think it
Yes, a
is,
health
right?
fair.
And you
Mhm.
can go and test for cholesterol, diabetes.
Right.
Would glaucoma be something that could easily be tested there, or they would have to come into your office
Well,
and
that's a
deal with a set
brilliant
of,
point, because it's been a peeve of theirs and mine why I'm so hesitant to come and join your health fair in the street outside medical benefits. It is
Mhm.
more dangerous to screen like that for glaucoma. We can
I
miss
see.
more than what we
Ah,
pick up
okay.
because of that same eye pressure issue. If we find the only thing we can test you for in the street is vision on the chart and eye
Hmm.
pressure.
Right.
We can look at the nerve in your eye, but we can't look properly without a darkened room.
I get you. Okay.
And so it's actually, you catch more glaucoma by programs like this and talking than you do by screening.
I see.
Screening is dangerous for diseases like glaucoma.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
mean, I can screen,
Okay.
I can dig your finger for your blood sugar. It's either high or low.
Right.
Exactly.
That's not the same for eye pressure. And that's why people sometimes think we're mean and we don't want to give out time because we're not. I tell a church, no, I come and give a talk to your congregation, but I can't screen you. It's too dangerous because think about it. The population in that church listening to me or coming to a screening is going to be more elderly. More people with glaucoma are going to be in that room because you're doing a health fair.
Yes.
And you're going to miss most of the glaucoma in that room because the eye pressure may not be elevated at the hour that you tested that day. And those people will leave like the men that I saw this week, 3 in 1 day.
It sounds like a
I
very
was on my
tricky.
knees. 3 in 1 day had seen me previously, 12 years ago, 18 years ago, and 22 years ago. And because their eye pressure was normal on that day, and you're not going to tell me, I didn't tell you, you have to repeat this. This is Dr. Bird you're speaking to. I tell everybody, you have to repeat this.
Yes. Yes.
Why? Why? Because we don't have a culture. Our mindset needs to change.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
awareness needs to be ramped up. So I appreciate you both for even thinking of me with this, with your program, because we
Well,
really
the
have to
program
get
is
people.
about phenomenal women and women who are trailblazers and
That's you, Dr.
first
Bird. That's
and,
you.
movers and shakers.
Yeah.
And someone recommended your name, and we were like, bingo, bingo.
Well, I appreciate you.
You
I
know,
don't know
we
about that, but I still appreciate you.
no, we
And
we
I've had
we,
the
we have so much
opportunity.
respect. Like I said, we for me, I don't know if I've ever told you this. I mean, growing up, you and your twin sister. I mean, we didn't know a lot of twins back then.
True.
I don't know where all these twins of today have come from. Well, I guess we kind of know, but back
Yeah,
in your generation, in our generation,
yeah.
it was just so fascinating to, these two bright,
I was just gonna
dominating
say they were just known as
twins,
two bright
the
girls.
top of their
Bright, bright, bright,
class
bright,
and,
bright.
very competitive. I
Well,
mean,
can I
luckily
tell you
for
a little bit
me,
about that bright thing? We got our glasses at about 4.5. I was going to Spring Gardens preschool at the
oh,
time.
wow.
And the teacher said to my dad one morning when he dropped us off, I think those two girls could be bright, but they can't see. So my father said, what do you mean they can't see? But they play, they eat. What do you mean by they can't see? And she was so right. I was as myopic as Megan is
I
today.
know, I know.
And I
Well,
got my first
my
glasses
siblings.
changed. It changed my life. I became bright after I tested my eyes.
But Mika was bright even before her glasses.
But I couldn't see. I remember we
What age
playing
did you
cricket.
begin to wear glasses, Mika? I can't even remember you not wearing glasses.
I think I started around 8, but I
8.
knew I went through some years of I knew I couldn't see well, and you guys used to tease me relentlessly because we're playing cricket, and I'm going for the ball
Yeah, they're going
going
the
one way,
different
and I'm going
direction.
the
I
other
remember
way.
that.
It's so
That
important. Children should not enter school without an eye exam. And some
yeah.
schools have now implemented it, but not all. And certainly not the government schools have not taken that on board yet. And so I'd like to give a plea to anyone that's listening. You cannot teach a child unless you clear the pathways in the eyes and
Absolutely.
ears. You have to know how can you teach a child without knowing what material you are dealing with.
Exactly. And can you imagine
Absolutely.
the amount of children who maybe back in the day, maybe not so much now,
Yeah,
couldn't see, nobody knew quite, and it may
right,
not be as in nearsighted, farsighted,
right.
but the astigmatism and that kind of stuff, those
Yeah.
Yeah.
little things that
Mhm.
prevent the child from seeing and therefore learning. And
Yep.
then
Right.
that
You
child
get
is
a
labeled,
label. You
that child
label
is
the.
labeled, and that's it
Yeah.
for life.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it for life.
But
Yeah.
I want to. I don't want us to ignore our audience. I know that we have quite a few persons who've joined. So, Megan, do we have any questions? I know I saw a few earlier,
We
and
have
comments.
a comment from Fanny King. She says, I'm learning a lot. My mom has both glaucoma and cataract. Thanks, Dr. Bird.
You're very welcome, Fanny. And both conditions often go hand in hand. The cataract is just the opacification or darkening of the optical lens, intraocular lens inside your eye. And just age alone helps that to become darker as you get older. And so both of these disorders are often twinned, both glaucoma
Oh,
and cataract. And I try to encourage my patients not to wait too long to have your cataracts done. Everybody's afraid of surgery to the
yeah.
eye. Everybody's afraid of blindness, but blindness is avoidable. And if your cataract is very opaque, the doctor has a hard time seeing to the back of your eye through that cataract. I have to look through the cataract to examine you properly.
Mm.
And so, if your cataract is dense and opaque because you were afraid to accept surgery, I may not be able to tell you if you have glaucoma without other fancy tests like ultrasound. And so don't be afraid to go to the doctor because you think surgery is going to be pushed on you. Surgery is never pushed on you. You have to say, yes, I want it. Most surgeons have you look in their eyes and say, yes, I want my eyes cut. And then you have to sign on the bottom line and then you have to pay before the doctor. So I usually comfort my patients and say, the doctor's not going to cut your eye tomorrow, you have to pay first.
Yep. It's a
So,
process.
So
but I
Any
think
more comments,
education,
Megan?
no, not at this time. No more comments. We have quite a few thumbs up and hearts.
thank you.
Persons liking it.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, but Dr. Bird, you are a household name.
Well, I hope so.
So
Some people turn off, the one lady turns off her radio when she hears me coming on because I'm scary. But that's not my mission. It's not to panic the public, really.
mhm.
It's to
That's
empower
sad.
you.
That's
Just like
sad.
how you
Yes,
empowering your audiences
exactly.
with financial and other literacies.
Right.
It's really to empower you and to tell you that you don't need to fail glaucoma. You just need to understand it. You
Exactly.
shouldn't. You should not be
And
afraid of glaucoma. You don't
And
have
the
to
whole
be.
and the empowerment part, you can be so empowered by taking control of your sight.
That's
exactly.
right.
That's empowering right
And your
there.
life.
That's right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Without your
Yeah.
sight, how do you really function? How do you, I
Yeah.
mean, even if you are older, and to me, the older you get, you need more. You need more
Yes, sir.
empowerment. You need
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what I say. We have this philosophy that because you're old, your eyes will be dark. I'm the opposite. I said your eyes have to be bright because you're old, because your knees are failing. You can't see who's coming up your garden path.
Mhm.
You have
Let
more
me
time to do things that you enjoy. So why
Mhm.
exactly,
not, be prepared with better sight
exactly,
so you can enjoy them?
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just need people to know that we have everything you need in Antigua to prevent blindness from glaucoma.
That's
Everything.
good to know.
That's
That
good
is
to
very
know.
good to know.
You don't
That's good
have
to
to
know.
travel overseas in the early stages. We have to rush you out for fancy techniques and surgery when you leave it too late. But we can manage glaucoma in Antigua. We have the doctors, we have the technology. Some of the other islands envy us what we have. I had a Montserrat
Mm.
patient today that has to come often because they don't have the
Mm.
services available there. People
Mm.
travel. I have a patient in Dominica trying to get a flight to come to my office with
Mhm.
glaucoma to get an opinion. So
Wow.
people in the other islands envy what we have here.
Mhm.
And so let's just use what we have here,
Hmm.
folks. Let's
Yeah.
use what we have here. It's
No,
not difficult. It's not as expensive as you think. I said on live TV the other night, I checked the price of one of the new fets coming up, the Farmers Only Fet. I checked the ticket price so that when people tell me that, that's the visual field test is too expensive, I'll tell them it's cheaper than the ticket for the
You
next
see?
party.
You see?
A lot
Yep.
cheaper. And
Yep.
it saves your sight.
Yep.
Wow, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
That's a good
Sandra Brown.
analogy.
Sandra Brown says that's true when you were speaking about the other islands,
That's
basically
right.
envying what we have.
Yeah.
And then we have another comment. Althea Scantlebury says, "Thank you, Dr. Bird. Very informative."
You're welcome. You're
And
welcome.
that's the idea.
Just
We
pass
really
the
want
word.
to, yes, we want to see how we can get the word out. We are all about financial wellness and financial empowerment, but we recognize we can't do it without our eyes.
That's right.
Our eyes are very, very important. So
That's right.
let's all take the time to spread the word. As you say, Dr. Bird, I'll be asking my friends, have they gone to get their eyes checked? And not just their eyes checked, but ask about glaucoma, because
Yeah.
it's important.
It's really
And
important.
after all, you're going to need your eyes to count that money,
That's
After
right.
all,
whether
after
it's
all.
physically or
Oh, yeah.
digitally or Bitcoin or
Yeah.
whatever whatever your fancy these days, you will need your vision to, I'm not saying people that are not that are blind or have vision challenges can't enjoy money, but it must be very tough if
Yeah.
you're building a very sound financial plan, business plan, and at the end of the day, you lose your sight,
Yeah.
not being able to fully um, embrace
Yeah.
or enjoy
Yes.
some of the fruits of your labor. So very, very important. I remember a couple of years ago, my eye doctor telling me to go get a glaucoma test, and I just didn't even bother. I'm like, what? I have to go to another doctor, and I had to find a directory of doctors, and I didn't do it immediately. But a year later, when I went back, or 2 years later, when I went back, it was raised again. So I went and I did my glaucoma test.
Yeah.
So I know how people can toss it aside because I did it initially.
Yeah.
But Dr. Bird, before we close, of course, the name of this show is Likkle Byte Ideas. And so we believe that, it's so refreshing when we can pool our ideas, bring our minds together, have these great discussions, but at least everybody walks away with a key learning, an idea, something that you may not have known before. And as we often say on this show, if I have an idea and you have an idea, that's a great thing. But it's when we bring our ideas together, those eureka moments can really happen because we walk away with even bigger ideas having brought our ideas together. So
Exactly.
tell us, on this show, we're never short of ideas. We'll drag it out, but we'll give you an opportunity as our guest today to share with us one of your ideas.
Well, one of my ideas is to have Saturday morning sessions with school leavers to
Hmm.
teach them what it means to borrow money,
Wow.
what you mean by the interest, compounded interest. When will you finish? When will you start to see your principal go down after your big loan 30 years ago? Your principal is not even touched yet. And most of us, not just young people, but adults, we don't have a clue when we get caught in that quagmire of borrowing. We don't understand what that means. And the fine print that says that even if you get a windfall, you can't just walk into the bank and pay off your
Completely.
loan.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't had a windfall, but I would be ready to use anything I had to pay down on a loan. You didn't read the fine print. You can't do that. So just financial literacy. So what you're doing but to bring it into the trenches, to bring it to the school children on a Saturday morning. Do not borrow any money to buy that vehicle. It's going to be a millstone around your neck. Do this instead. So my little idea is for you girls to keep doing what you're doing. That's my little
Well,
idea.
Dr. Bird,
Thank
whenever
you
you
so
have that
much.
Saturday morning session, I'll be there. Count me in. Absolutely. That's an
We'll check
excellent
eyes.
idea.
We'll check eyes. We'll check eye pressure and glaucoma, and then we'll
Then
sit down and teach them a little bit about borrowing. Because
I
if I
think that's an
could do
excellent idea.
anything over again in my 30-year career, it would be to have understood what borrowing, taking a loan really meant.
Excellent. I
And if
love
One
I
that
had
question
idea.
I wanted to ask earlier, what was your inspiration to become, what or who was your inspiration to become an eye doctor? Where did that come about? I mean, I know you came from a
it's
a family that was
purely,
focused on education, and who knows, you know,
purely
with
by
your mother
chance.
being an educator, you
So by
probably had
chance,
more focused conversations about career. I'm just assuming more so than other families. I mean, in our family, yeah, we talked about it. I don't know. What do you say, Megan? Did you
it
kind of know what
was
you wanted to be when you wanted to grow up? When you were growing
oh
up?
yeah, I was supposed to be a pediatrician. And then
Okay.
I was supposed to be a chemical engineer.
Oh, I
I did
remember the engineer
physics,
story.
math, and
Yes,
chemistry
yes.
at A levels. And then,
Yeah,
like you,
yeah.
I hated physics after a while. Oh, I hated
Mhm.
it.
I
And I realized,
I
okay,
preferred physics and chemistry.
no, I could deal with the chemistry. Physics was just too much after a
Biology,
while.
forget it. I couldn't. I
Yeah.
was
Well,
horrible.
mine was purely by chance. Mine was the desperation with the change in career when the sugar industry. I trained in the sugar estates in Guyana, as a sugar chemist. I
Oh,
wore a hard hat and steel tip shoes with the men. And so I
wow.
have
And
been
this was
bumping heads.
after high school.
This was
No,
after
this
she
is
opted not to,
after my first degree at UWI.
right.
When I decided I didn't want to be a doctor, I decided I hated medicine. That wasn't true.
Hmm.
I didn't hate medicine. I hated the thought of being a doctor after my sister
After your
became a doctor.
sister, right?
So I did sugar chemistry. I did training with Guy Suko in Guyana, and I came back here and worked on the project that was the new and improved Antigua Sugar Factory, which
Wow.
didn't last very long.
What
And
year did
so
the sugar factory close? Just as a digression, I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and I can't remember.
well, it would have to be
17
about
is,
1982,
Oh,
1981,
it went all the
82.
way. I thought it ended in. Wow, we
oh,
had sugar
okay.
production all the way in the
Oh
'80s. I did not
yeah,
realize that.
I made some pretty wash sugar, that golden
I
wash
remember wash
sugar.
sugar.
But I had to find. There was a dilemma. I had to find something to do. I was, in my 20s without what do I do now? And so I wrote for allied. Remember, I said I hated medicine. That was a lie. I wrote on 4 pieces of paper allied health professions that I might stomach doing for the rest of my life because I had a strong science background. That's why everybody assumed we were going to be doctors
Yes.
because we did the physics and the chemistry, etc., etc. And one was optometry, one was pharmacy, pharmaceutical sciences, one was pharmacology, which is slightly different, one was podiatry. I just put down all the health professions that I applied to all the schools. And I vowed that the first one that accepted me, that's where I'm going.
Oh
And
wow.
the letter from optometry came first
Oh,
and out I
wow.
went.
And the rest
Pharmacy, I
is
just
history.
accepted to pharmacology after that, but I had made a promise to myself. You're wasting time. You
Wow.
have to get going. Your sister going to be a doctor just now. Come on, let's
The
go.
Yeah, that
Let's
must have been a
go.
competition.
lot of pressure.
The
That must
competition.
have been a lot of pressure.
Yeah. That's so
So,
be
Dr.
careful with
Bird,
your twins. Be careful with the different individuals. Well, I knew they were different from I had them as infants in my
Yeah,
office.
still different.
But you just have to celebrate the individual in each.
Yes.
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 We have another
So,
comment. Brilliant idea. Financial wellness, sight wellness. Powerful combination. Thank you,
Amen.
Dr. Bird. Priceless information. That's from Norma
Amen.
Samuel. Yep.
Yes. Thank you,
Thanks,
Norma.
Norma.
That's
Yeah.
really true. Because
Yeah.
we can't lose if we make sure we can see and we make sure we're financially literate. We can run this world.
we're good to
Absolutely.
go.
Absolutely.
I am very curious about the sugar production. What are we going to do with that skill? Are you going to start making wine? I mean, how do we get you back to? How do we get
You
you
know,
back to producing something?
I know, and I loved it. I after making friends with the men and calming down their egos to this slip of a girl that was coming in here, they assumed making more than they were, which I was in several instances. I became I became their dolly. They protected me on the pan floors after, so but I had a lot of tweaking of egos to do, and they tested me. They made me drop sugar into the palm of my hands, molasses at 212 degrees Fahrenheit,
Oh my
to
goodness.
see how powerful you think you are. You think you can do this? And the tears streaming down my face as I still have calloused hands from that.
Oh my goodness.
But I befriended the men in the sugar factories on all the estates that I worked with. And most of them could have been my father and grandfathers. But do you want to know the sad thing now? I am seeing some of the old pan boilers as patients with
Oh.
advanced glaucoma. And that to me is heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know anything about glaucoma when I was
Yeah.
boiling sugar
Yeah.
with them,
Exactly.
but they
Wow.
seeked me out. Some of the
Yeah.
old Guyanese pan boilers still live here in Antigua,
Did not know
Oh,
that.
okay.
and they
Interesting.
seeked me out. You, Miss Bird, you used to be up by the factory? Yes. Yeah, but it's
Wow.
very sad.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So
Yes.
we,
Oh,
we,
this
we
was
spoke
wonderful.
about vision. Of course, we came to talk about finance and we ended up talking about sugar.
sugar, can you imagine?
That's what Likkle Byte Ideas is all about.
That's right.
Megan, I was just sharing with someone maybe 2 nights ago, an Antiguan person, younger than our generation. I just had a flashback in the middle of a conversation about, we probably did it maybe twice or three times, going cotton picking. Do you remember that?
Oh, of course.
Yes,
Loved it.
absolutely.
Loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
Yes, and getting
Yeah.
the stuff in your
Yes.
fingers.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, yes. And you had the aprons where you put
Yeah,
the
the aprons I was talking
Yes.
about, and you stuff your stuff in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I said,
okay.
I don't think we did it more than 3 times.
No,
Really?
But it was
kids
such-
have lost out on a lot. Oh, kids,
Yes. So true.
yeah, with the onset of the technology and
Yeah.
all the
Yes.
devices. Yeah.
So
Yes,
true.
and interestingly, Dr. Bird, Genesis, as you remember, Genesis is studying environmental science.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh,
Oh, we
Just
lost
lost
her.
just
Uh-oh.
lost it. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, Genesis was her own person when I knew her.
Oh, she
And
still is.
Genesis
Still very much is.
denied poor vision because because wearing glasses was not cool.
Was not cool. Not
And the
cool.
same
but is-
rivalry. Her sister didn't have the same issues.
Exactly.
So it was a battle to get Genesis to put a frame on her face.
Get her to
Yes,
do
and
what?
she's-
Oh dear. Oh,
to
here
wear
she
the
is.
glasses.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. But I was saying she is obsessed with farming.
Ah, interesting.
So that's her new thing. Her school has a farm and she's obsessed with it. So it's interesting
Great.
how
Great.
kids kind of, find their
Yeah.
roots
That's right.
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
put in a different environment.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
her grandmother, Lady Miriam, must be so tickled to hear that.
Oh,
Must
yes.
be.
She calls her to get farming tips all the time.
Oh, that's
they
great.
talk farming. So, yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Great,
Yes.
great, great.
So, do
Well,
we
this
have
was
any
a lovely
questions
time.
before we leave?
No, that
Megan?
was it. That was the last one. Nothing else. Yes, that was it.
Great. Well, this has been such a great
Awesome. Loved
I
it,
discussion.
loved it.
enjoyed this. I
I
Yes,
was a
this was
little
certainly did.
great.
anxious when you asked me because I said, "Oh, please, why are you going to ask me on a show with financial literacy?" But I survived.
You did, and you
Oh
did. You
yeah. Oh
survived
yeah. And
well.
it's and you
Yes.
did very
And you gave
well.
an awesome idea. So we'll talk. We'll definitely talk.
Absolutely. So we want to thank all of our guests for joining us. Hopefully you learned a lot. I certainly did.
Yes.
I hope you will all be empowered in so many different ways beyond financial literacy to also take stock of our vision. It's so
Yes.
key that, with all of the sacrifices that we make and the plans that we make in life and the goals that we set, that we have good vision so that we can
Yes,
enjoy it and live comfortable lives. And it's all
that's right.
about living the life that you imagined.
That's
And I
right.
certainly don't think any of us imagine a life without our sight, especially if you were born that way, that's one thing. But for
That's
those
right.
of us who have enjoyed our sight, I'm sure our goals include being able to have a life, a comfortable life where we can see and enjoy everything that nature has to offer and beyond. So, to
Mhm.
all of us who joined today, we want to say thank you. We will continue to honor our trailblazers, our women in our Empower Her. And Empower Her, the H is not silent. So
Okay.
that H is there deliberately. And so, Megan, do we have a guest confirmed for next Thursday?
Next Thursday, we'll be having our first female member of parliament, Dr. Jackie Quinn.
Hmm.
Fantastic. That should be
So that's
another
going to be another
interesting, another
interesting one.
first.
Yeah.
Yes,
And of course, we went to
absolutely.
school with Jackie, so that should be a
Yes.
good day of reminiscing and
Yes.
tracing our paths and just having a great conversation about where we are today and what we need to do in terms of making goals and living our best lives.
Yes.
So we welcome you to come back next Thursday, same time at 5 p.m. And then, of course, in March, we're lucky to be blessed with 5 Thursdays. We have a real treat on March 31st, the fifth Thursday in March. Of course, we're going to have a women's jam. It's going to be a money mindset mixer. We're going to have a female mixologist. We're going to have a female DJ. We're going to have we're going to try to bring back as many of our guests as possible. We're going to try to get some very powerful women, even further afield beyond Antigua, to join us. We'll see how lucky we get. We just want to have a meeting of the minds, cross-pollination of the ideas, and that's what it's all about.
For women.
So, from all of us here at Byte Ideas, Dr. Bird, thank you so much once again, and to all of our guests.
And
Have
our
a great
technician.
weekend. We want to thank our female technician who's on today, Aaliyah. Thank you for doing a great job, and thank you for being such a great support for us. This technology thing, we couldn't be here without you. So, Aaliyah, thank you so much from our team. And to all of our guests, remember to go get, if you haven't done so recently, go get your glaucoma test done. It could be that an act that saves your vision and improves your life. So, from all
That's
of us,
right.
another edition of Byte Ideas, and we'll see you back next week. Thanks for joining us. Take
Thank you
Bye,
care.
again.
everyone. Bye.